Hi, in this video I'm going to talk about the financial literacy model and introduce that to you. When I run the courses that we do in person, one of the first things that I do is I hand people cards when they walk into the room with financial terms, cards that are kind of like these. And each person gets about 2, 3, 4 of them at random depending on the size of the class. And when they sit down at their tables, I get them to talk about these terms within their groups. It really helps to break the ice, people to get to know each other a little bit, but also a familiarization with at least looking at these words. To the best of their ability then, what I get them to do is define those words for each other and then put them into these buckets. So I have 3 buckets. I have a make bucket, I have a save bucket, and I have a live bucket, like kind of spending your money kind of bucket. And I ask them to put the words and the terminology cards into each of the appropriate buckets. And then we have a bit of a discussion about that. It's kind of a fun thing to do, and at the end, everybody's warmed up. Now, unfortunately, I can't do that in an online setting. The best that I can do is show you some of these terms. So with regard to these terms, you'll notice that there's a bunch of words here, as an example, that have to do with making money, like asset or capital gain or compounding or MER, or management expense ratio when you're investing money in a mutual fund or any kind of a fund. There are some terms here that have to do with saving money, such as RRSPs or TFSAs, at least in Canada. Those are our tax advantage savings vehicles. In the United States, the tax advantage saving vehicles would be, say, the 401k plan that you have or the Roth IRA plan that you have. And then there's a few terms here that have to do with living or spending money, like spending money on insurance for term life or amortization with regard to mortgage and buying a house. So that hopefully gives you a little bit of insight, at least, as to how we run the courses. Now, I also hand out during my course, and you'll get that down below in terms of an attachment to this particular video, is a glossary of those terms, which is a list of all the terms that I've put cards together for, as well as definitions. The important thing, of course, is the list, right? It's one of those, you don't know what you don't know, so hopefully the list will at least give you a list of those words, and if you want to do some further reading on them, at least you can Google them and you can find some more insight with regard to all the terminology. Now, as a bit of a curveball, I also put together a list of terms in cards of words that I don't think mean a heck of a lot, or at least cards that don't really add a lot of value to us as everyday investors. Terms like, overweight, market weight, and underweight. Like, analysts will often use those kinds of terms as if to I guess, sound more complicated than they really ought to. For example, like a term like market weight, I just don't understand at all.
To me, it's just a made-up word, a politician's word, so that young fellas like yourself can wear a suit and a tie and have a job.
Anyways, that's just confusing. So that's the reason I put it in there, just to highlight the fact that there's some terms out there in the financial world that really serves to confuse us and hurt us as investors more than they help us. I've talked about the components of the financial literacy model, and believe it or not, the order of make, save, live matters. Just as an example, we typically in classical personal finance, people talk about the word budgeting. Well, budgeting implies make, live, save, which is making a budget, right? Making your money, living to that budget, and after the fact, saving what you have left according to your budget. Well, businesses practice make, live, save, and they practice really, really well. But you know what? The difference between businesses and us is businesses don't have families. Businesses only have needs. Businesses don't have wants. Businesses don't have birthdays. They don't have Friday night dinner out. They don't have get together with friends. They don't have wedding presents to get. And so it's much easier for businesses to practice make, live, save than it is for the rest of us. And so for us, the order of make, save, live really, really does matter in the context of a financial model. Well, what is make? Make has to do with, well, certainly your career, your job, your ability to create value. Make has to do with the different types of income, and in particular the type of income that we should all strive to earn, which I'll talk about in a later episode. Make has to do with paying taxes, and it also has to do with investing. So I'll cover all of those things in the make section, in the first sections of these videos. Save has to do with, well, really the greatest asset that we all have as savers. It has to do with the savings vehicles that I've talked about, the tax advantage savings vehicles that I talked about. And living, of course, has to do with spending money. You know, how millionaires spend their money. The concept of value versus price in terms of spending money, borrowing money, credit cards, mortgages, lines of credit, as well as insurance and protecting your family. So those are the components of live. And so through the entire financial literacy model, I hope to cover everything that I think we need to know in personal finance in order to create a wealthy life. Now, the concept of make, save, live is not really new. In the 1980s, an author named David Chilton actually wrote a book called The Wealthy Barber, which I've read probably, 4 or 5 times. It's a great book, and the phrase that, at least the first time I heard the phrase was from the Wealthy Barber, was pay yourself first, which literally is make, save, live. Make your money, pay yourself first, meaning save a bunch of money off what you make and just spend the rest without thinking about budgeting too much. You know, whatever you have left in your bank account after you've paid yourself and put it into a separate savings account, well, you can just spend. And so there's an interesting little footnote in the later editions of this book, and I'm going to read that to you. And it says, 30 years from now, Chilton could be remembered not as a best-selling author, but as a man who inspired thousands to save their way to prosperity. And you know, as great a book as it is, I'm not so sure that it impacted nearly as many people as it should have. And I think part of it is because a book can only go so far, at least in the context of personal finance and the behaviors associated with that. And I hope that through this person-to-person interaction, through my in-person workshop, as well as on this video series in this format, I could maybe further some of these efforts and make more people financially literate and on their path to a wealthy life. So that's about the end of this particular video. We talked about the financial literacy model. You'll get a glossary of the common terms in our financial lives. And of course, the model itself, make, save, live, is really the most important behavior that can impact our financial health. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this and you got something out of it. And until next time, I'll see you later. Take care.